Hi, guys, and welcome back to the FKFM podcast. This episode is episode 2 of the education series. So I hope you all enjoyed episode 1. And if you haven't listened to episode 1, then I'd recommend that you do so, because what I'm trying to do with the education series is kind of have like a timeline so that I start off with the complete sort of basic level knowledge, and then over time we'll expand into more complex topics and cover the basic topics in a lot more detail. And I want it to be so that people listening along almost follow the journey of the podcast, so that they don't get to episode 9, 10, and let's say, talk about volume or frequency or cortisol or something like that I've already spoke about previously, and they're like, what is that? Okay, so I want it to be that you start off with that basic knowledge and you work up from there, so that when anything is covered in more detail, you already have the basic knowledge on that concept. So that's my aim with these podcasts, with the education series. So I would recommend that you follow it along in order as best as possible. So today's episode is on consistency and adherence. So to be honest, I could have actually had this as episode 1, because without both of these or either of these, you might as well not have any knowledge. It's irrelevant how knowledgeable you are if you can't adhere to a given program or a given diet, whatever it may be, for a consistent amount of time. It doesn't matter how knowledgeable you are. There's some crazy knowledgeable people out there who know that it's, let's say, better for them not to drink alcohol or not to smoke, or it's better for them they would be better off if they resistance trained, but they don't, because they either can't adhere to it for whatever reasons, or they can't adhere to it consistently for whatever reason. So it's irrelevant how knowledgeable you are. It's also irrelevant how hard you can train. Again, if you can't do it consistently and you can't adhere to it consistently, you can't expect to see growth if you go in and train like an absolute animal once every 2 weeks, because you can't be asked the rest of the time. So I could have actually had this as episode 1, because it's they're both very important. So what are they? What do they mean? So consistency, as most of you will know, means doing something, repeating something over time, let's say. And doing it the same. I guess I've not got the Oxford Dictionary actual definition in front of me, but obviously, if you're consistently doing something, you're doing it over and over and over and over and over again. Okay. And if you are adhering to something, you are doing what you should be doing. So to adhere to something means doing what you should be doing. So if I'm supposed to adhere to a certain amount of steps a day, my goal is 8,000 steps. If I don't do that amount of steps, I've not adhered to that goal. If I don't eat my food, sort of, let's say my macros are 250 protein, 500 carb, 50 fat. If I eat 100 protein, 700 carb, and 150 fat, have I adhered to my macros, to my diet? No. Okay, so adhering is just being accurate and doing as you should in order to reach your required goals. Okay, so if you can't do either of those, everything else is irrelevant. There's no ifs or buts with that. It's not like, oh, well, I'm good 80% of the time. And, yeah, don't get me wrong. It doesn't have to be black and white, 100% versus nothing. But if you really want to optimize everything and get the most out of your physique and your training, then generally it does need to be close to 100%. It's likewise when people say, oh, is it 100%? Is it, how much is nutrition important? Is it 80% training, 20% nutrition? Is it this? It's all 100%. Everything's 100%. If you want the best at in anything, why would you not give 100%? Yeah, it's like, if you do anything in life, you should want to put 100% into everything. I find it odd that people wouldn't, or that people don't, but that's my mindset on that. Hence fitness mindset podcast. So yeah, that's what they are. That's the definitions, I guess, even though I've not got the Oxford definitions in front of me. So why are they important? Why is it important to be consistent and to adhere? Why can't you just train every now and again and eat well every now and again? And basically, we're gonna cover food, training, and all other variables. So we'll go with training first. Okay, so in terms of why it's important to adhere to your training and be consistent with your training. There's loads of things. So first of all, if you're not consistently training, you're obviously not going to be consistently creating that stimulus, that demand on the body in order for it to grow. So, you train, let's say, once every week versus 4 times per week. Likelihood is you're going to get much better results training 4 times per week, especially if you've managed your volume and your frequency properly, in terms of you're not training 4 full body sessions and absolutely ruining yourself. You're also not just going in and doing arms every session. So generally, if you can be consistent and adhere to a program, you're obviously going to get more out of it than if you're training whenever you fancy it. Then you go in without a plan and you just train whatever you fancy, whenever you fancy. It's supposed to be on legs, but a couple of the leg pieces of kit are taken, so you just do arms. Do you really think that's going to give you the best results possible? No, of course it's not. It's not rocket science. If you, let's say, compared 2 people with the exact same genetics, let's say identical twins, exact same genetics, let's say, and they both go to the gym 4 times per week. One of them goes in with no plan. He does whatever his mate's doing. He does whatever machines are free. He doesn't have a logbook. He doesn't care about progressively overloading his movements. He doesn't track anything. He just goes in and does what he wants. And then you have the guy the other twin, who goes in. He's got an upper lower split. He's got all of his movements planned. He's got a logbook. He's programmed specifically around him and his recovery capabilities. He's made sure that he's chosen movements that suit his biomechanics. He is on it in terms of his form, his execution, his accuracy, his intensity. As we spoke about in the last episode, he progressively, focuses on improving across the board. Who do you think is going to, get the best results? It's obvious. Obviously, that's, again, saying people with the exact same genetics. Genetics play a huge role. That's why you see some guys who do absolutely everything in their power to grow more muscle, and then you see some guys who just pick up a weight and throw it around and eat whatever they want, and they grow insanely. That's genetics. We can't help that. We can't combat that. That's the world we live in. We have to accept it. But when it comes to forgetting genetics, and if everyone had identical genetics, then realistically the people who are the most adherent, the most consistent, the most hardworking, they'd be the people who are the biggest, the strongest, the best in business, whatever it may be. Okay, so we need to be adherent and consistent in regards to a plan in place for training. So that comes on to, programming and having a plan in place, which will come in subsequent episodes. But if you can't, adhere or be consistent to a plan, then it's irrelevant even having a plan. So we need to focus on being consistent and adhering to that program. Towards the end of this episode, I'm going to cover the best ways that we can improve our adherence and our consistency. For now, I'm just covering the different ways and why it's important for different variables. So the second one is obviously our nutrition. So why is it important to adhere and be consistent when it comes to nutrition? So this is massively important. If your goal is fat loss, let's say, you need to be in a caloric deficit. And if you're not adherent to your diet, so let's say your macros are set and you're not adhering to those macros, and then you wonder why you're not losing fat, it's simply because you're not adhering to those macros. Okay, so if you 100% have an accurate caloric deficit and then you don't adhere to it, you're obviously not going to get the result and the benefit of the caloric deficit, which is fat loss. Okay, so that's rule number one. If you can't adhere to a diet, to a program in place, a meal plan, a macro plan, whatever it may be, that's going to place you in a specific goal, whether it be a surplus, maintenance, a deficit, if you can't adhere to what you're supposed to do, then you won't go in that direction. So let's say you're trying to diet down for a contest prep, but you simply just can't adhere to your diet, you won't get in shape and you won't do well. Simple as that. It doesn't matter how big you are, how much muscle you have. If you can't get in shape because you can't adhere to a diet, you won't do well. Likewise, if you are someone who's really struggling to put on size, let's say you quote unquote hard gainer, and you're wondering why you can't grow, but then you simply won't adhere to the amount of food that you need to eat to grow, then that's obviously why, because you simply won't adhere. It's not easy. It's like both sides of the coin. You get people go, oh, I wish I could eat that much all the time. No, you don't. It's hard work. Speaking from personal experience. So gaining body weight is hard, as well as losing body weight. You have to adhere. You have to push your body to certain limits in order to reach specific goals. Okay. So if your goal is maximal muscle mass, you're going to have to push your body weight up to slightly uncomfortable levels and eat uncomfortable amounts of food in order to do so. Okay. If you want to maximize it. Okay. Yeah, you can gain muscle at maintenance. You can even gain muscle in a slight deficit for the start if you've got a decent amount of body fat to tap into for energy. But generally speaking, if you really want to maximize your muscle growth and your hypertrophy potential, you're going to have to push body weight up to a decent extent within a healthy range. Okay. So it's massively important to be able to adhere to nutritional targets. Otherwise, you won't be able to perform a given phase correctly. Okay, so this is why people, question why they can't lose fat, and it's because they don't understand energy balance, or they do understand it and they just can't adhere to it, and they're either lying to themselves knowingly or they're inaccurately tracking things. So often people will just lie to themselves. Oh, I only consumed 2,500 calories. I tracked it all on MyFitnessPal, but they didn't track the 2 snacks that they had in the day. They didn't track the fact that they were having a bag of crisps while they were doing the cooking. They only tracked the meal. So, you've got to be so accurate when it comes to logging macros, logging your food, if you're trying to adhere to a diet or a gaining phase, in order to actually progress within that phase. Okay. And if you can't adhere to that given phase, then you simply won't get where you want to get. And then obviously with consistency, it comes down to, if you, let's say, adhere to the diet 5 days out of the 7, those 2 days where you just sack it off and you think, oh, well, I've been consistent for the 5 days. Those 2 days are just undone all your hard work. So let's say your goal is to lose 2 pounds of fat per week, let's say. Okay, so we need to create a decent caloric deficit there. We need to create 3,500 calories is generally equates to a pound of fat loss. But I'm not going to go into that much detail because I also don't really go into that much detail with clients because I think it just overcomplicates things. But anyway, we need to be in a good deficit to lose a couple of pounds per week, let's say. Okay, so let's say you create that deficit from Monday to Friday and you've done spot on, you've hit all your macros bang on, you're creating the deficit nicely, body weight's coming down perfectly, you're noticing the fat loss come off, you're on track for your overall goal, let's say. So far through Monday to Friday, you have been in a deficit by, let's say, 250 calories a day. So that means that overall across those 5 days, you're 1,250 calories in a deficit, okay, across those 4 days, just as an example. Then on the weekend, you think, oh, I've been really good through those 5 days, so I can allow myself to have a takeaway and I'll allow myself to have dessert and I'll have loads of drinks and I'll just enjoy myself over the weekend because I've been so good throughout the week. For some people, this mindset is fine. And if you are the type of person who can really dig deep throughout the week and then do that at the weekend and still be in an overall deficit, then absolutely fine. Feel free. No problems, because you're still going in the right direction and you're not ruining that progress that you've put in. Whereas if you're the type of person who does all that hard work Monday to Friday, but then blows it all out of the water and goes into a massive surplus over the weekend because you can't control yourself, then you're just wasting your time throughout the week. So you'd be much better off either eating a little bit more throughout the week and over the weekend to be in a deficit consistently without feeling like you're digging yourself so deep of a hole, or just being more adherent and consistent over the weekend and just not being sort of succumbing to cravings. Or, to be fair, a lot of this comes down to how well you perform in the fat loss phase in regards to your nutrient timing, your food volume, your stress levels, your expenditure, how high you push your food in the last gaining phase. There's a lot of things come into it, but generally, let's imagine it like I spoke about in terms of the energy balance in the last episode. You create, let's say, 1,250 calories worth of a deficit from Monday to Friday. Then you eat over your calories by 3,000 on Saturday and Sunday. So you've gone 6,000 over. So you've actually created a 4,750 calorie surplus across the course of the week. And then you're wondering why you're not losing fat because you eat so well Monday to Friday. Well, there you go. As simple as that. You're not eating in a deficit. You might be through the week, but you're not over the weekend. Okay. It's the same when it comes to food volume. Okay. So food volume doesn't equate to calories. So people will be like, oh, I don't even eat that much. And then you'll see what they've got for lunch, and they've got a Tesco meal deal. They've got, let's say they've got a chicken bacon sandwich, which is 600 calories. They've got a full calorie Coke, which is going to be maybe, let's say, a couple of hundred calories. And then they've got a packet of crisps or a chocolate bar, a couple of hundred calories. So that's 1,000 calories there for lunch. Let's say for some females, for some like smaller females, let's say for them to be in a deficit initially, depending on how much muscle they have and their lifestyle and everything, of course, they may need to only be on 1,400 calories or something like that, and they're having 1,000 calories through a lunch that's not even going to fill them up. So food volume and actual caloric intake are two very different things. So food volume is the amount of food that you're putting in your stomach. If you look at food and think that is how much it's going to fill my stomach, that is food volume. Caloric intake, or how calorically dense a food is how much, obviously, how many calories it contains. Okay, so if it's a donut, let's say, it's a calorically dense food, but it's low volume. Let's say something like Haribo sweets. Yeah, they're calorically dense. They have a lot of sugar in there. They're high carbohydrate, but they're such low volume that you could eat a packet and you wouldn't even feel like you've eaten anything. Okay, so that's the difference between food volume and actual sort of calories. But that's gone off. I've gone off on a bit of a tangent there, but that sort of helps anyway when it comes to being adherent and consistent with the diet, and that's why it's so important to be adherent and consistent, because you otherwise will just go off track with your progress, and you'll wonder why you're not making progress if you don't understand, or if you do understand and you're just lying to yourself, then you know why you're not doing it. But it's as simple as being, having enough willpower to be consistent and adherent, and also implementing some of the things I'm going to go into at the end in order to be able to do so. And then you've got all your other variables. So we've done training, nutrition, all your other variables like expenditure, recovery, so like your sleep, your stress levels, your hydration, all of these things. Again, very important in order to keep your body in a sort of efficient position to perform the phase that you're in. So if one day you do 1,000 steps and the next day you do 20,000, and then the day after you do 2,000, and the day after you do 30,000, and the day after that 30,000 step day is a leg day, and last week, the day after a 1,000 step day was leg day, and you wonder why your leg day is not as good this week. Well, you did 30,000 steps yesterday, you didn't do 1,000, so what do you expect? Okay, so little things like that people don't even take into consideration, and they just go into the gym and train, which, to be fair, I'm quite envious of, because it must be quite enjoyable to just go in and not worry about any of these things. But I'm assuming that the majority of people who are listening to the podcast are wanting to make the most of their progress and make the most of their physique and get as much out of their training as they can. Doing that by going into a leg day after 30,000 steps, or even like 10,000 steps in the morning, let's say, and then wondering why your leg day is not great. What can you expect? Your body's in a position where it's expended a lot more energy around that window. You're in a more of a fatigue position. Your legs are going to be in a more fatigued position. So, that's why it's important to be, consistent with that. When it comes to sleep, obviously we want to get into a nice routine. It's going to put our body in a better position to recover and to grow. We don't want to be having 4 hours sleep one night and 10 hours the next because you're catching up on sleep, because it's not really how sleep works. We want to be in a more of a routine. Our body works off of that routine, that circadian rhythm, that sleep cycle throughout the night. And for us to sort of try and catch up, it's not really how it works. We need to be more so consistently getting sort of similar amounts to keep our body in a optimal position to again maintain either the phase you're in, maintain the progress you're making, maintain your performance in the gym, out the gym, in life as well. It's not just all about training. It's also important how you're performing in the workspace, in social situations, whatever it may be. Sleep's going to impact that massively if it's all over the place. Stress levels, likewise, if they're sort of plummeting. Sort of one day you're absolutely chilled, doing nothing at all. The next day you're, I don't know, let's say, getting massively stressed at work and this and that. You need to be ideally in the sort of not the middle, but you need to be in a position where you can manage all of your stress and just keep it at a consistent low level. Again, for the benefits of recovery and the benefits that you're going to get out of that. So, when it's sort of self-explanatory, it's common sense that you need to aim to sort of manage all of these other variables outside of just training and nutrition, and manage them in a way that they're going to be sort of stagnant, let's say, so that they're not constantly up and down. They're staying in the same kind of range, to almost keep your body in sort of homeostasis. So your body's in a position that it's comfortable with, to an extent, but that is your, like, let's say for everyone trying to optimize their physique and do everything they can to make the most out of the training, our homeostasis should be a very efficient position. We should be in a very, very healthy position to optimize our training and our recovery, and that almost be our homeostasis, where our body's used to being sort of very well hydrated, our body's used to being well rested, we're used to being low stressed, we're used to being sort of, let's say, when it comes to a gaining phase, we're used to being in a gradual surplus. When it comes to a fat loss phase, we're used to being in a gradual deficit, and your body becomes comfortable within that sort of level of homeostasis, which is a good thing. But yeah, that's why it's important to be consistent and adhere across all variables, training, nutrition, and everything else. So, how can we improve our adherence? How can we commit to being adherent consistently? So, with training, have a program in place that you enjoy, that fits around your lifestyle. So, let's say you work 4 days a week, and they're all 12-hour shifts, let's say. Okay, so if that's the case, you could literally do, you could have those 4 days as your rest days, and then the 3 days that you have as days off, you could potentially train twice on those days if you really wanted to. Or you could do like an upper day, a lower day, and then maybe like an auxiliary day where you cover everything, sort of, let's say, a little bit more isolation work, because those upper and lower days you've been heavily focused on compounds. If you work the 4 days and they're not all in a row, let's say you work 4 days across the week and you can split the 3 rest days, then you could do 3 full body days. If you can manage recovery well enough, you could do an upper, a lower, and a full body. So you just manage it around your lifestyle. I'll have clients who will sign up and they'll be they'll say, right, I even have in the application form, how long can you dictate to a session? How many sessions can you dictate to, can you dedicate time to per week? Sort of what, I'll get them to give me a full schedule of their day-to-day life. So if they say, oh, I work 10 till 4, so I can't train on those days. Yes, you can. You can train earlier, you can train after. Whereas if they work 7 till 7 and they've got young children who they want to put to bed on an evening, then of course we don't train on those days. Works around your lifestyle. So that's something that you need to plan around, and then you need to have a program in place that you enjoy, especially as a beginner. The enjoyment aspect is going to be more important, but something that you enjoy, that you can sort of sustain in terms of, let's say, the gym that you train at. You don't want to be programming things around gyms that you can't train at or that are miles away, and then you're having to sort of input that into your day-to-day schedule when you're struggling for time anyway. You're going to have to put in sort of commute time, which we don't. If you haven't got the time for that, then choose the gym as close to you and work around that. That's how you can adhere. Make things easier, reduce your amount of decisions that you have to make. Okay, so I literally live opposite Pure Gym. I don't train there now like I did initially, just because like now I have more time and I want to train in better gyms. But like initially, it was perfect. I worked there and I could train there, and it was perfect. I could fit as many clients in as I wanted. I could come home and quickly grab some food and go back. It was perfect. Whereas now that I'm solely online and I have more time, I can train wherever I want and I can dedicate time to it. Because it's becoming more and more of my career. I guess my own training as well. So it's all dependent on the phase. People used to say to me, "Oh, you're lucky because you live opposite the gym." It's not luck. I pay for this flat. It's not luck, is it? But it's also not luck for me that I live next to a gym. It's generally just going to be, for some people harder than it might be for others. But like I say, that's when it comes down to, okay, well, you have to prioritize different things and you have to have a plan in place so that you can prioritize different things. Don't just make excuses, make solutions, and don't say, oh, I haven't got time or I can't because of this. Just prioritize what is most important to you. And if your training and your nutrition, whatever it may be, anything to reach your goals, if that's not important to you and if it's not a priority right now, then that you need to accept that. I need to understand that that's okay, and that right now it might just not be the right thing for you. Yeah. So if someone says to me, "Oh, I really want to compete," but this year my wife's due to have a little girl. I guess I can't even say that, can I? I can't assume genders anymore. They is due to have a little they. Crazy. I'm trying to keep this podcast as professional as possible. So yeah, let's say they say to me that they have a partner and they're having a child. That's better. This year, and they're also doing a master's alongside a full-time job. I would say to them, look, no, like, you can't commit to a prep when you've got that much on if you want to do well at it and you want to actually adhere to it. Whereas let's say in 2-3 years time, the child's grown up a little bit, it's decided its own gender by now, and the master's is over, and then you've just got a full-time job to work around and a young child versus a complete newborn. There you go, sorted. So all of these things, social sort of lifestyle situations, variables that come into it, they're more important than just I want to compete, so I've got to do it right now. So anyway, that was kind of covering training and ways to make sure that you can adhere to it. So have a plan, have a plan that you can adhere to because you enjoy it, because it works around your lifestyle, because it suits the gym or the sort of accommodation, whatever you have. Even if you have to train at home, it suits that. I've had clients throughout lockdowns who have made some real good progress with very minimal kit. Obviously, they're not huge bodybuilders. They may, generally lifestyle clients, but they're made real good progress even with very minimal kit. A lot of my clients had a good amount of kit. But if the goal is fat loss, you don't need the gym. You don't need the gym at all. You just need to stay in a caloric deficit. The gym helps, of course, in terms of health and being able to be happy with how you look when you are losing that fat, because you're going to have more muscle mass as well to actually sort of reveal. But you don't have to have a gym, and if it doesn't work for you to fit that into your program and to adhere to it because I can't get to the gym, or you don't like the gym, then don't have that as part of your program. Just train at home, or go to the park, or whatever it may be. So it has to fit around you. Same with nutrition, very similar principles. Don't eat things you don't enjoy. You don't need to have chicken and rice for every meal if you don't like it. Every meal that I have, I enjoy it. I don't even, during prep, I didn't have any meals I didn't enjoy. Otherwise, I'd have been more inclined to go over my calories and binge and have something else. I didn't crave anything throughout prep because I was eating foods that I enjoyed. Of course, like, I'm not eating donuts for every meal, but who does want to do that? You'd feel horrendous anyway. So eat foods that you enjoy, make your food taste nice. Don't just be sort of lackluster when it comes to making your food. Make it taste nice, because that will help not just in terms of adhering to it, but also in terms of your digestion. Because if you're seeing the food and it looks good and you're smelling it and it smells nice, that's going to make you salivate more, which is going to help the digestive process, which again will be an episode in itself, or episodes within themselves. So that's nutrition. Don't make it boring, and make sure it's foods that you can afford as well over time. That's something that I always say to clients. I don't generally give people meal plans, because I'll say to them, I want you to choose foods that you enjoy, that you can adhere to over time, that you can afford consistently. So these are all more important than me telling you to eat white fish and rice. It's still just macros at the end of the day. Yes, food quality is important. Again, an episode in itself. And then all your other variables, again, the main thing is routine. have a structure to your life. If you're, like I said, getting 2 hours sleep one night and 10 hours the next, it all comes down to a structure and a routine. Give yourself a sleep time and a wake time, or a window for their sleep, going to sleep and getting up every day. Make sure you're relaxing, a couple of hours pre-bed to stay within that routine. If you have a step target, make sure that you fit it in when it works, on a lunch break, pre and post work, where it may be best. If you have an office job and you can't leave your desk, get up earlier and go on a little walk, go on a walk before bed. It's all structure, it's all planning, it's all routine. And that's generally the consensus across all of this is planning and structure, and sort of being proactive and thinking ahead. Same with food. That's a massive one with food. Be proactive. Don't just get to the end of the day and go, oh, I've missed my targets today. Be proactive, plan it ahead, plan your meals in MyFitnessPal, save them as meals so it's dead easy. And then even if you do have a substitution, you can just sub it in and out. So yeah, being proactive, planning ahead is an important one as well for everything. Okay, so that's pretty much everything covered there, in terms of ways that we can improve adherence and consistency. So you've got planning ahead, and being proactive as possible as you can, having a good structure, suiting it to you and your lifestyle, and generally just making sure that you're doing it for the right reasons, which brings me to the last thing. So your motivation is obviously going to play a huge role as to how consistent you are, or how well you adhere to something. If you're not really motivated and you don't really know why you're doing it, then you're not going to do it. So then we come to intrinsic versus extrinsic motives. So if your sole motivation is because someone else is doing it, then it's probably not going to be strong enough to actually continue to do it and adhere to it. If your motivation is because you want to be the best version of yourself, and you have goals within fitness, health, bodybuilding, business, whatever it may be, you're likely going to stick to it because it's your goal, it's your focus, it's your why. Which I don't really like saying. I find it cringy, the whole your why thing. But that it does make a lot of sense. You need to find your reason why you're doing it. Okay. And if you can't find that, or if it doesn't seem strong enough to actually maintain the hard work and the adherence and the consistency over time, then your why isn't strong enough, or your motivation isn't strong enough, and you need to find a stronger one, or it's just not for you, which again, like I said earlier, is absolutely fine, and you need to accept that it's not for you. Okay, so if you're going to the gym every day and going, I don't even like this, but I want to look better, I don't even like eating healthily, I just want to sit and do nothing all day every day. Like if that makes you happy, then do that. Seriously, like if that's what you want to do and it makes you happy, then do it. If that doesn't make you happy and you really do want to help yourself and get in better shape and this and that, then generally you need to find a alternative of what you're doing, because what you're doing right now, you're not enjoying it enough, or you're not structuring it around your lifestyle enough, you're not planning ahead enough, you're not being structured enough to actually maintain that adherence and that consistency. So you need to find out what is your reason why you're doing it. Is that reason strong enough to keep you doing it? If it is, then you'll be fine and you'll just do it. Like for me, I don't even think motivation isn't even a question. Adherence, consistency, it's not even a question. It's just done because I want to do it and it's the way I am. But for other people, it's a lot harder, and you have to manipulate things to work it around them. I have clients who have structured refeeds because otherwise they can't adhere to the program. They can't adhere to the diet if they haven't got a set goal of when they can overeat from their calories. Like I said earlier, though, that will still be set so that they're in a deficit overall. Same with like programs. I'll have people who are on a set 4-week program, then we can change it because they can't adhere otherwise. They need a start and end. Whereas I have some clients who I could tell them anything. I could say, you're going to do this exact program for the next 5 years. And they'd be like, yeah, that's cool. I know I'm going to progress from it. I know I'm going to grow. So it's massively important on your why, your motivation. Is it intrinsic? Is it from yourself? Is it coming from within? Or is it extrinsic? Is it coming from external factors like other people who are telling you need to do it when you don't want to, or through social media? Because that's generally not going to be as strong as if it's coming from within. So I'm going to wrap it up there. I hope that episode's been pretty helpful to anyone who struggles with being consistent and with adhering to targets or to different phases that you may be in. I hope it's covered sort of what they are, why they're important, and how you can improve them. And like I say, the main thing you need to think really is your motive, is that strong enough? Your motivation strong enough? And if it's not, then you need to find a new one, or you need to accept that it's not, and that's fine, and that's okay for now. And it's not time to do it, or you simply have another avenue to go down, which is absolutely fine. So yeah, I'm going to leave it there. Any questions, as always, please ask. Leave a review, a star rating. It's not like and subscribe on this, is it? I think you can follow the podcast on Spotify, so follow along. But yeah, I hope you're all enjoying it. And like I said, any content you want covering, please just ask. And I'll see you all in the next episode. Cheers, guys.